One of the most successful videos on our channel was my video on top 5 best websites for football data and statistics. Now, since then, there's been quite a few comments on that video wondering more about the best websites for football statistics, but more so on niche markets like cards, corners, shots on target, these kind of more niche markets or niche statistics in football. Now, these statistics like cards and corners are becoming really useful for sports bettors because they're not as important to the bookmakers like compared to 1x2 markets. So, who's going to win the game, the over-under markets, how many goals are going to be in the game, handicaps, all this kind of stuff. The bookmakers are putting less focus on markets like cards, corners, shots on targets, this kind of stuff. So if you are using some, useful websites, it could actually really help with your betting on these smaller markets. But just remember, some of these websites are publicly available. So if people in some cases are willing to pay for the data, or there are some good free websites out there too, then it's kind of available to everyone. And most likely the bookmakers are factoring in all this data into their prices. So just keep that in mind, that there's a good chance that just by using the statistics from the websites I will highlight, you're not going to be able to beat the bookmakers long term, most probably. You need to use those statistics and then use other things too to gain an edge long term over the bookmakers. But if you're just a football fan and looking to maybe place a fun bet on the weekend, or if you're not interested in betting at all, I'm sure you'll get something out of this video anyway, somewhere where you can check out the card statistics on your favourite team, or your corner statistics on the league, all that kind of stuff. So here is my top 3.
It is a scam when you don't allow everyone to operate on fair terms.
We are the Robin Hoods of sports betting. We take something back from the rich bookies and enable our customers to beat them instead.
The first website on my list is Footy Stats. Alright, so here is Footy Stats. The only problem with Footy Stats, I would say just off the top, is that you do have to pay to show all the data. So if we were to subscribe, let's just have a look at how much it costs. £20 a month. So obviously, if you want to be using this website, you want to be reasonably serious about your stats and maybe looking to gain some kind of edge in the betting market, or you basically want to be using it to support your making money in the betting markets, or maybe you can make money elsewhere by subscribing. But it's a beautiful website. I think it probably, out of all the 3 I'm going to show you, it is probably the best. The only problem is, like I said, you do have to pay for more data. But if you are looking to gain an edge in betting, you can see that it's directly correlated to the betting markets here. So looking at the corners page here, it gives you an average corners per match for all the teams in Europe. For this one here, let's just look at Häcken here in Sweden. 13.4 a match. They're getting average corners. That's total corners, and you can see in the betting markets that over 9.5 is happening 80% of the time, and then they give you the odds for over 9.5. So I'm pretty sure off the top of my head that 80% of the time would correlate to 1.25 in odds. So 9.5 plus to hit over 9.5, they're giving you 1.4. So that would be a value bet there. Obviously, depending on the sample size, this could be based off, or this 80% here could just be based off a couple of games. But if you've got a decent sample size there, it shows that maybe there's a little edge there for you. Obviously, you get corners for, corners against. I do like that it says when their next match is, so you can maybe filter that through and say, I'll focus on the ones that'll be tomorrow. And if you go over to their card sets, a little bit less detailed. Sorry, here it is. But yeah, as I said, we're going past Europe too, so it's probably, we're looking at a website here where you're getting card stats for all around the world. And yeah, average card stats per match, leagues with the most yellow and red cards, and then down to players. So this will definitely supplement your betting if you're looking to take it more serious though, as there is a cost to getting all the data. So yeah, I think Footy Stats is a great website if you are looking to, maybe take your betting a lot more seriously, or maybe you're at the professional level, or maybe it's your part-time jobs, supplements your income, those kind of things. If you're going to pay for something, you want to be taking your betting pretty seriously. The second website on my list is FootCharts. FootCharts might be my favorite website out of all of these ones, not for its data on its basic kind of data on cards and corners, just because if you look at the website here, they haven't got any data on the current season. And if you do go back to the 2021-22 Premier League season here, it is kind of a little bit basic. I mean, this is all free, great data. But you can find these kind of stats in a lot of places, in a lot of websites. I do love the format of all their stats, as you can see here. This this style of graph or chart is it's easy on the eye for more visual people, if you want to put it that way. But cards, corners, shots on target, all really great stuff. But I have to say my favorite part of this website is their correlation data. So like I said, unfortunately they haven't really updated for this season yet. I assume maybe after 10 or so games, just having a guess here, they'll start to update their website. But this is my favorite part of the website, is the correlation page here. So as you can see, they're mapping out the correlation here between cards and fouls. So if you look at Everton, for example, here, they're saying that they actually don't concede that many fouls. They're probably about average for the Premier League last season, but they're actually getting quite a lot of cards per foul. So, I mean, maybe that's for a reason. Maybe because they're committing, bad fouls. They're not just, committing little fouls here and there that don't get you a card. But very, very interesting to look at. And if you look at Leeds, it almost seems like they're getting punished in the right way for their cards. Maybe they're getting a little harshly dealt with. But really interesting stuff. But then you can look at a team like Man City. They barely commit that many fouls. Watford's an interesting one. Commit lots of fouls, but they don't necessarily. I know they're not in the Premier League anymore, but they don't necessarily get too many yellow cards. But I mean, the most interesting thing is you can go back through all the seasons. Maybe you'll find some trends there for certain teams. For example, Crystal Palace have been in the league for a couple of years. Maybe you can see that there's a correlation over the years. Cards against versus fouls against. All this data is really interesting, and maybe you can find some, like I said, some trends of the way maybe referees referee each of these teams' games. Like always, give yourself an edge in the betting market. The third website on my list is The Stats Don't Lie. As you'll see on my page here, The Stats Don't Lie have such a wide range of data for leagues all around the world. I mean, just scrolling through this page, they've got historical data for just about every league you could imagine. Some leagues we're going back nearly 10 years. So, and lower divisions too, which is great. So, for example, if we're looking at England, they've got data. I've never even heard of this league before, but look at all these leagues they've got data for way back. They're not just going down to League 2, they're going down to National League, Conference League. As you can see on this page here, it's very, there's a lot of data here. So for example, I just clicked on the 17-18 Premier League season, and as you can see, they have historical data on just about everything. Both teams to score in the first half. I mean, it goes very, very deep. If you were more concerned about cards kind of statistics, you've got red cards for, red cards against. You've got yellow cards for, yellow cards against. Maybe corner data we're looking at too here. Corners against, corners for. So if you're really looking to delve deep into previous seasons and see some very long historical trends, this is a very good website for it. And it's not just for cards and corners, those niche markets. They've got all sorts of markets here that you can get historical data for. I would say just their standard yellow, red card kind of data and corners and all this kind of stuff is kind of quite basic. I mean, if I wanted to check out the English Premier League here for yellows for and against, it is kind of standard. And what I don't like is that you can't then filter. So this is for the 22-23 season. I can't then filter for previous seasons. I would have to go into the historical data. So I think some of the other websites I've highlighted are better in that department. If you did, for some reason, wanted to get their predictions, I have no idea if they're good or bad. You do have to pay for those too. So I think it's a very small subscription fee. But this is another website like the first one we went through, Footy Stats, where you do have to pay to get certain parts of the website. But like I said, if you want to look at historical data, this is the place to go. I will highlight though, with historical data, that you really want to think hard about how far you want to go back with your historical data, because if you want to, for example, look at yellow cards statistics, let's just say, how has the league changed in the last 10 years? Because you've got historical data here for the English Premier League, let's just say back to the 13-14 season. So off the top of my head, we've got data here for about 9 seasons. So how far do you want to go back in terms of maybe you want to build a model to do with cards on the English Premier League? Because there's changes in referees, there's changes maybe in the way the referees officiate games, potentially they've become more stricter lately. Maybe they'll let things go a little bit more back in 13-14 season, didn't give out as many cards. These are all things you have to think about. So when you are potentially building a model in this case, let's just say, you want to be thinking, is the 13-14 season statistics relevant to the 22-23 season where I'm trying to bet? Maybe it's a completely different game, and some rules may have changed. The VAR could play a part in this too, especially with red cards. So these are all important things to look at when you're looking at historical data and how far to go back. So some people might be asking, so how can I use these in the betting markets, and what does it look like to be placing cards, corners, shots on target kind of bets? Well, right now I'll just take you quickly through some ways that you could implement that data into your betting and what it looks like on a betting website. All right, so here we have Bet365, just for example, one of the most popular bookmakers around, and everyone's got access to it all around the world, basically. So there's a couple ways you can implement, you can place cards and corners bets. They've obviously got the tabs here where you can go over 4.5 cards, for example. You can bet on players to be booked. Goes all the way down to a card handicap, etc. Corners, as we kind of stated before, you've got the over 9.5 markets pretty prominent. So you can bet on these kind of markets, or you can take the avenue of a same game multi, or also known as bet builders in other circumstances. So in these markets, you can build some things together. So maybe you're an expert in cards and corners too. So you're thinking, all right, Merseyside derby, we're thinking Everton probably going to be on the back foot for most of the game. They're probably going to have to foul Liverpool a couple of times to stop their momentum, get a couple of cards. I'm not an expert in this area, but let's just say this is what you're thinking. All right, so I'm thinking over 2.5 for Everton, get cards. I'm thinking potentially both teams combined. In that case, I'm going to go over 3 also for both teams to get a card. Corners, I think Liverpool will be on the front foot for most of the game. So I'm going to say Liverpool are at least going to get, 4 corners. And now you've built yourself a little bet here for 2.15 for all those things to happen. Now, I'm not saying this is a good bet or a bad bet or a neutral EV bet, if you want to call it that, but this is just an avenue that you as a sports bettor could go down if you think you have an edge in this market. So potentially you could look at this bet here and say, for all these things to happen, for Everton to get at least 3 cards, for the whole game to get at least 4 cards, and for Liverpool to get at least 4 corners, I'm thinking the true odds on that are 2.0 or something, and you've got an edge here of, or decent edge here. So we're getting value at 2.15 here. So these are just some things that you could potentially look at if you were looking to model all this kind of stuff. Like I said at the start of the video, you have to be very careful with these markets, because although the bookmakers know less about these more niche markets, because they know less, they put more margin on their products. So that kind of gets them out of the situation where they're going to lose money in these markets. Because they know less, they stick a bigger margin on it, which makes it harder for you to beat them. So you have to keep all this in mind when betting these more niche markets. That concludes my video on the top 3 best websites for football props betting. If there is some other websites that I have missed, I'm sure there is, please make sure you comment them below and let us know your favorite websites for these more niche markets like cards, corners, shots on target. But if this is your first time on the channel, thank you very much for watching. Even if it's your 100th time on the channel, thanks for watching. Please give the video a like, subscribe to our channel, and click the bell so you get notification every time we post a video like this. Have a good one, guys. Cheers.